people listening will find astounding. That you say that again? 30?
Between 30 and 40 jokes in the monologue.
So a conservative estimate, every night you're doing 30
32,
jokes.
34, yeah.
Wow. That's like an extra... I mean, you know it because you do
know
it
what
every
it
night.
is?
But just hearing it,
you have a situation now where there aren't that many interesting people.
Yeah.
There are so many shows.
Thank God for the Kardashians. You keep circling. You can circle back around.
Yeah, but what I mean is in terms of guests...
You need them to have more kids.
Yeah, exactly. You have guests now. Everybody has a publicist. The days of George Gobel coming on drunk with a drink in his hand.
You remember the war, Johnny? It was in all the papers.
That's what I mean. It just... Those days are gone. Everybody is managed. Everybody is handled. You know. I mean, I remember one time we had on some ice skater who was like America's darling. I don't know.
How are they available?
Well, listen to this. Anyway, she was posing for Playboy. So we got a
Tanya
call.
Harding.
No, it wasn't Tanya Harding. It was an Olympic ice skater.
I meant the other one.
Yeah, no. And so they said, she wants to be on. I said, well, okay. She's kind of out of the news, but she's in Playboy. Okay, we'll book her. So we book her as a second guest. She gets here, and the publicist says, Jay, can I speak to you? Yes. We're not mentioning Playboy. I said, take your client and go home. Your client is only here because she's naked in Playboy. No one's seen her for 8, 9 years. This is an interesting human interest story. I'm not going to humiliate her. I'll just ask her about it. But we're doing this or she's not going out. Okay. So that's what happens.
Have you ever requested a guest? Have you ever seen somebody on TV and said, come into work the next day and said, I don't know who this person is, but they're incredible. And I want
usually civilian, usually somebody that did something. I'm trying to think what the last one. Oh, there was a girl that was having, I saw her in the paper, chin surgery because she had a chin like Jay Leno and she wanted it changed. And I said, let's bring her on.
Did she come on?
Yeah, she was the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. And she got the surgery anyway. But
did you have her on before the surgery or after the surgery?
No, I had her on before the surgery.
But did you bring her back after?
No.
Just let America remember her. How
let them have the dream.
Her lantern jaw beauty.
Exactly.
That you brought her in with.
Exactly.
You when you first came to LA, I read I think it was 25 questions and 25 things you don't know about Jay Leno in Us Weekly.
Yeah.
And it said when you first moved to LA. Let me ask you this. I'll tee you up. Have you ever been arrested?
Yes, I got arrested twice for vagrancy.
Why?
No visible means of support. When I got to town,
that's all of us.
I was so stupid. I just got on a plane. I was sitting in my apartment in Boston, and I knew other guys that were going to be actors and comics, and I was living on what I made as a comic. It wasn't much, but that's
where did you perform?
Just around Boston. I did a lot of strip clubs. I once worked. A guy hired me. This is so awful. I was like 19 years old. The guy goes, I could use a comic. I was at a strip club in Boston. He goes, I'll give you $25 to perform at so he gives me the address. And I go to this place in Dorchester, and it's a whorehouse. It's 3 stories, one of those 3-decker houses.
3 floors of whores.
Well, no, and the bottom story was where the guys hang out. So I walk in, and it's all men. I was like 19. It's men with like stubble and lunch pails, and they're all staring at the ground. And I walk in, hey, how you guys doing? Well, these
Where
guys
you from?
These guys don't want anybody to know they're there, and they're all looking at
What's
the ground.
your name?
I go, how you doing? And I stop my act, and this guy goes, hey, what are you doing? So I'm a comedian. He goes, get out of here. Get out of here. And I ran away. I ran out the door, so embarrassing, humiliating. Never got my $25.
You didn't get the money?
No, I didn't get the money. It was just a lot of jobs like that. So anyway, I was sitting in my apartment, and my buddy couldn't go on an acting job because he had to work because he'd bought a new Camaro and he had to make a car payment. And I said, I don't want to get stuck here because of something material. I'm going to either want a car or a nice place to live in Boston, and I'm not going to be a comedian if I do that. And I got up and I walked out the apartment and I told the neighbors, take anything you want. I'm going to L.A. I just took what I could and I left the door open and I came here. So I landed in Los Angeles and I landed at the airport, and I said, I see a cab. A guy goes, where are you going? I knew the Comedy Store was on the Sunset Strip. I didn't know the address.
What year is this?
This is 1972.
Okay.
I said, take me to the Sunset Strip. Okay. He says, how much you got? $50? Okay. Well, he drops me at Vermont and Sunset.
Yeah.
I mean, like
for those of you listening,
12 miles. Yeah. And I get out of the cab, and I got a little suitcase, and I go, this doesn't look like the Sunset Strip. It's all Korean barbecues. And I walk like 8 miles to the Comedy Store. And I slept on the back stairs for the first 3 or 4 days of the comedy. I didn't know anybody. And then I got to know a few
Did you ask if you could sleep on the back stairs, or you just...
I just kind of slept on the back stairs. And that's what I did, you know. And anyway, that's when I got picked up for vagrancy. So I would go down.
Do you think Mitzi called the cops on you?
No, I didn't get arrested there. I didn't know how you get in show business. I said, I'll go hang around Hollywood Boulevard. So I was down near Hollywood and Vine and around that area.
And talk to strangers.
So one day the cops walk by and they see me there at 8 o'clock. And the cop goes by again at 9. Finally, 11 o'clock. What's your name? Where do you live? I don't get in the back. So I would have to sit in the back of the cop car for the whole shift until dawn. And then at dawn, they drop me off and they go, all right, find a place to live. Okay, yes, sir. Sorry, officer. Thank you. So then, you know, like a week later, hey, back of the car. Ugh.
But what is the back of the car? Why not bring you in to, like, book you for vagrancy?
Because I would tell them jokes, and I would tell them funny stories, and they liked me. They weren't mean to me. They didn't mistreat me. They just, off the street, back of the car, and they would just drive me around until their shift was over at dawn, and then I would go back on this, just walk.
And they would tell you, go back and vagrant.
I would just walk around and try to be in show business.
Just vagrant on someone else's time.
That's how I thought you got. It was the most humiliating, you know, just awful. I used to live in the alley next to the Improv.
Who lives in alleys?
Next to the Improv on 44th.
You only live near comedy clubs.
Well, I went
back steps of the Comedy Store, alley behind the Improv.
Well, I went to New York,
right by Lincoln,
and I was performing at the Improv, and I didn't have money for a hotel or anything, so I'd say to Bud, I got to go. So I would go and I would sleep in the alley right next to the Improv. Cause I remember
this is in Manhattan, in Hell's Kitchen. I
remember seeing
really
Dyke's Lumberyard. I always remember seeing that.
To the listeners, not really a place you want to put your head down at night.
No. So I'm sleeping, and I realize, and I hear the most horrible noises, and I realize I'm in an alley where hookers are taking guys in, you know, and arguing, and I'm going, really, this is my life now. I'm in an alley.
You never had a day job? You never had something to supplement the income?
No, I was determined never to make a living. I'm going to make a living as a comedian. That was it. I think once you make that decision to get some other kind of job.
I'm going to be a prostitute in an alley.
Well, I just lived on what I made as a comedian. I was determined not to get a job, because then if I got a job, I would want nice things, and then I would want a nice place to live. And I realized being a comedian would be secondary to that.
Well, you've certainly made up for it. I mean, you've got a lot of nice things now with your car.
Okay.
You have a great collection of cars, which is like it's very famous.
You know, when you work on, you know, if you're a comedian, there are people think you're funny and people think you suck, and they're both right. You can't argue with them. You know what I'm saying? No. If people don't think you're funny...
I've never heard it put that way.
No. But, you know, when you have something that's broken, like an engine, and you fix it and you make it run, no one can say it's not running.
Wow.
I mean, I can tell you a joke, and you'll laugh, and he'll go, I didn't think it was very funny at all.
He's still trying to figure out the Ronald Reagan bleacher joke.
Exactly.
He's a dunce.
When you work on cars and you fix something that's broken, then you have a sense of then it actually runs. It's not subjective. It is actually working.
You must have had real jobs before you did stand-up.
I worked at McDonald's when I was 16. I got a job at McDonald's.
Was it Dorchester McDonald's?
No, in Andover, Mass. I did pretty good. I bought a new Buick.
With McDonald's money?
Yeah.
What's everybody complaining about out there?
Well,
you get a Buick with McDonald's money.
I was working 3 shifts.
So hold on a second. So you worked 3 shifts.
Yeah.
So I saw an interview with Carlin a long time ago on YouTube where he said it's all genetics. Even the willingness to work hard is genetic. And like Bobby Knight had that great quote when he said, everyone has the will to win. Send me kids with the will to prepare to win.
That's probably true.
He threw a chair at somebody.
I'm a great believer in low self-esteem. You know, the only people with high self-esteem are actors and criminals. I'm one of those people, I assume I am the dumbest person in the room, and if I just work harder... Like, I remember going to the Improv to audition, and I remember waiting in line at the Improv, and you'd line up at like 5 o'clock to go on at 11, 12 at night, and I would see people go, "It sucks," and they'd step out of line. And I'd move forward, and I'd go,
closer.
Wow, this is good. If I can just outweight the other guy. You know, here's the interesting thing. I always tell comics, if you can physically make it to the stage for 7 years, you will be successful. Most comics cannot. On year 4 or 5, they're sick of their act, They hate their material. They're too straight. They're too gay. They drink. They do drugs. There's something that keeps them in
There's
year
something
5
too.
or 6.
TOO. There's a 2 in their life.
They can't physically get to the stage. And you've seen this. If you think of all the guys we knew that were really funny, and they have a good act, and they're so sick of doing their act, by the time they start to make it, they change it, and they do something, and then they're not as funny anymore, and then they want to go a different direction. If you can physically do it for 7 years, you will be successful.
What comics do you like now? Are there guys like...
Oh, there's a lot of guys. I like all the guys. We were just talking about Steve Byrne, who's really funny. I think he's funny.
A friend of mine just texted me, said I'm going to see Steve Byrne tonight.
He's really good.
Literally...
You know who's really great is Kathleen Madigan. Boy, she is...
Joke machine.
Joke machine, clever, smart.
She writes a lot.
And, I always hate the word comedian. You're a comic, male, female. Female...
You don't write anything down?
Huh?
You don't write down...
I don't.
I mean, you have bullet points probably when you go on stage. You don't a cocktail napkin with a little...
No, I don't do that. I'm sorry.
So when you go out on stage, where do you
try to keep it
in Vegas?
The Mirage.
I just didn't want to say the wrong hotel.
The Mirage, but I perform
mob come whack me.
No, but it's all...
So when you go out on stage...
I used to work mob guys. I used to work mob clubs, the Latin Quarter.
And where's that?
That was in New Jersey. I remember years ago I was at Catch, and I was on stage, and everybody was making fun of this mob guy, and he was getting pissed off. So I went on, I did my act, and he said, "Kid, come here, you're very funny." He put $100 in my pocket, and I said, very respectfully, I said, "Thank you, sir, I appreciate it, but, I give it to the church or something like that, "Oh, you don't want my money?" I said, no disrespect. Oh. So I go out in the front, and he comes out, he goes, "You're very smart. You don't take money from people like me. That's how you get in trouble." He said, "You're a smart kid," and gave me one of these things on the face, I said, "Thank you, sir." Because I used to work for those kind of creepy guys, and if you didn't succumb to the sex, the drugs, the alcohol, whatever they were offering you, they didn't bother you. Now, I worked for Mr. Kelly's, I worked all these places, and in fact, when I remember when I worked Mr. Kelly's, I said, with Frida Payne, and the guy came up to me and he goes, "Hey, we're out of E's." And I said, "What?" On the sign out front, Frida Payne took all the E's. So we're out of E's. You got to be J.L. No. So I look out front and it says comedian J.L. No. And
we're out of E's.
We're out of E's.
And it's Mr. Kelly's like a mob joint.
This is Mr. Kelly, yeah. No, this is Chicago. So the review comes out. Frida Payne, very funny. Opening act, the comedian with the unusual name, J.L. No. Mr. No is a very funny comedian. It's just stupid, but that's neither here nor there. But I just used to work a lot of those kind of mob joints. In fact, one day
how?
I'll tell you.
But how do you get? Go ahead.
I was working a club in Boston, and I'm on stage, and there was this Billy, the bouncer, like a mob guy, and he's seating people. So I hear a guy. I hear this in the back. "Hey, the pole's in my way. Shut up. Just watch your show. I can't see the show. The pole's in my way."
Obstructed vision.
Yeah, and then I hear, "Wow!" And I go, "What's that?" And Billy goes, "Nothing. They tried this guy. Anyway, this guy was talking.
Scared the shit out of me.
No. Billy takes out a big buck knife, stabs the guy in the thigh, and cuts him all the way up to the groin. About a maybe 8-inch cut. And the guy's screaming, and they drag him out of the club. He's bleeding. They throw him in the cab, and they send him off to the hospital. So I come off stage. Billy was nothing. The guy was. I said, "Well, you shouldn't have stabbed him." "Nah, he was a jerk." Blah, blah, blah. So like 3-4 months go by. I'm back here in L.A. I get a club in the comedy. "Jay, hey, Billy needs your help." I go, "Billy, the bouncer. Remember the guy who helped you?" I go, "He didn't help me." He said, "Yeah, remember the guy was talking while you're on stage and Billy stabbed him?" I go, "What?" I said, "What's the matter?" And I never forget this quote. He said, "Well, Billy killed a guy, and now the cops are hassling him." And I said, "Gee, you think the cops would have something better to do than to hassle Billy for murdering a guy?"
Comics for Vagrancy at Vermont and Sunset.
Yeah, so I just
and driving them around during their shifts.
That was the last days of that old school stuff. So it was.
Yeah, you really were like the generation of guys that like just playing a strip club to me is so bizarre. Like I was at the tail end of the comedy boom where like you'd go up to the Catskills to be a disco, they'd stop the music and go ahead. But you actually...
Yeah, I'll tell you the Catskills. One day I had an agent named Herb Totus. He says, "I got your job in the Catskills. Pays $100. $100, that's great." I drive up to the Catskills and I see tonight, Jay Leno, Jewish storyteller. and I pull in, and it's a Hasidic resort with the sheets, with the blood hanging in the front and the whole deal. And I walk in, and they got the whole Hasidic. And I walk out on stage, and I said, I'm not Jewish. And everybody's talking Yiddish. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what and then the rabbi comes out, Mr. Leno, very sorry. I said, I can tell you some stories about being Italian, but it's kind of like being Jewish.